Check, check, check. Seems to be working. Okay, let's see here. Open tunes. Well, this has been a busy week. Busy week. So I haven't done tons and tons of animating. But I did have to redo the Ninja one crawling into the room. And I just got done doing the coloring. Did the inking a couple days ago. So basically his motion feels pretty good. I was pretty happy with it, and my big boss over there, she pointed out that there should be a little bit of a pause right there in the middle. So put the pause in the middle. I think we're good to go. So now what's actually still missing is all of the shadows. Obviously we got to put the shadows. Some of you might be wondering, well, what the heck's this actually going to look like? Well, I need to jump up out of the sub X sheet to show that. Let's see. Yeah, that's a pretty good approximation. Now there's this red line in there was put in there as a guide. So as you can see, the background looks okay, the floor looks okay, the ninja looks okay, but there's no he doesn't have any shadows on him, so he basically looks kind of stupid. So let's address that. So maybe if we go back to the look at what's been done so far, you can see, yeah, basically where we're at is we're taking this little maneuver right here where he does the barrel roll, and we're redoing it. We're actually getting rid of the camera move, but so as you can see, these guys are going to be like that backlit, and looks pretty cool. Although it's interesting, now that I go back and look at it, I noticed that I never did put the the lines on his wrap in the old version either. So, oh, the crimes I commit. There's no limit to it. Okay, so let's go here and let's dive into, oh, okay. So this whole time I've been blabbing, you haven't been able to see what I'm talking about because I've had the wrong screen turned on. So that's kind of dumb. Geez, what do we do? Let's see, I've been going for 2 minutes. Do I go back and redo it? Forget it. Forget it. We're just going to show this. Okay, so this is what I was comparing it to. I had this move which I thought was actually super cool. I thought the barrel roll was like, you know, the bomb. And Valerie quite rightly pointed out that gravity would dictate that no human being could ever really do that. And plus, quiet, surreptitious ninjas don't really do barrel rolls when they enter a room. So as cool as I might have thought it looked, I stand corrected. So, so with that, I take a sip of my coffee. And now the problem that we have is, excuse me, the and by the way, I have to get down into the sub X sheet here. It's a little tricky to see what's going on because I'm actually, I put the X sheet up on a different window because it's like, it's just too big, and trying to squish everything into one page or one screen here in OpenTunes is just silly. So with that, I'm going to go to the first frame. Okay, so what we need to do here is we got to give this guy some wrap action. So I'm going to turn the onion skins back on. Let's see here. Let's do the B key. Let's grab the outline color, and I'm just going to touch it so I know I've got its attention, and there we go. Okay, so I'm turning the onion skins on because this is actually going to be really important to get the continuity from frame to frame on these lines. Okay, so it looks like I already did that first line, quite a bit of it, and I can kind of wing it like I'm doing here. I'm going to turn up the smoothing, by the way, so these lines are smooth. It probably won't surprise you to learn that the reason we turn on smoothing is to make the lines smooth. Well, I'm just full of wit today, aren't I? Valerie does not look like she's very entertained by my obnoxious behavior. Nope, nope, nope. Okay. So let's go back to the top here, and what we need is we're just going to keep following this through. Now we've clearly got some squashing going on his hand that, or his forearm, I guess I should say, that is might defy a bit of belief, frankly, but it's one of those cases where it goes by really fast, and I think to get from this point to that point, we had to employ a little bit of stretching. Now, I mean, come on, it's a cartoon. Stretching happens in cartoons, but you don't want to go too hog wild with squash and stretch. Other than in high action scenes, which you could argue that this is, at least the sequence that we're working on goes by pretty fast, and he's moving pretty quickly. You do too much squash and stretch in an anime, it's not going to look like an anime, because animes aren't, all about squash and stretch. Animes are really about the drawings for the most part, meaning that as much as possible, create a drawing and then animate as little as possible, right? That's kind of the anime recipe. So the quality of the drawing and the ink and the shadows and the details are a little more the attention goes to that than the quote-unquote motion, like you might think of a Disney cartoon or something. I'm good either way. Personally, my bent is way more towards full animation, and that's when I seem to find myself having the most fun, is when I'm actually working out movement. But we don't want to, so you can inject a little bit of that into the style, of course, but basically we don't want to deviate too much from the conventions, let's say, of Japanese anime. So look at Avatar, The Last Airbender. They did a good job of, actually I think they did a very good job of walking the line between a strict anime style and a more Americanized, Cartoon Network, or actually I think it was Nickelodeon. Back to that one. But see how I'm putting a little bit of an angle on that line. So this part's fun too, because it is working out motion, and frankly, when you deal with these little details, when it works, it's pretty cool. In my case, usually it does work. I seem to pretty much have a good knack for creating convincing motion, I think. Other people may disagree. In other words, if I'm going to err, I'm probably going to err on the side of putting too much activity and motion into the animation and having it look too busy and sort of Disney-esque full animation than erring on the side of not doing enough. So that can be a dangerous recipe when the goal is to create a Japanese style anime. Yeah, that's gonna work. Okay, so I think we're gonna lose a line there, but here, once we get into here, because it is stretched out a bit, we probably should at least suggest, and I'm gonna turn the smoothing down because it's looking like the smoothing's actually causing for these really short lines, it doesn't work so well. Okay, so let's get that. Now let's loop it and see what we have. Yeah, I mean, that looks pretty good. The thing you're always looking for with something like this is be what I call chatter. And I don't know what other people call it because I don't actually know the proper terminology. Nor, quite frankly, do I much care. But by chatter, I mean that the way it changes from keyframe to keyframe is sufficiently... well, the worst thing you can do is have a line that goes over here and then comes back this way, you know, because then it's going like this, you know. That's what I mean by chatter. But you probably knew that, because you're very intelligent. If you're not intelligent, why are you watching my YouTube channel? Only intelligent people are allowed to watch my YouTube channel. Isn't that right, Valerie? That's not true. In fact, I'm going to actually go on record right now, and I'm just going to say it. If you're a really, really stupid person, like if you're a complete Neanderthal idiot, you're still allowed to watch my YouTube channel, okay? No need to identify yourself, but you're welcome here. I promise. There. Isn't that nice? You see, I'm very inclusive. I'm feeling very inclusive today. And in this era of political correctness, inclusiveness is usually a good thing. What's that? I said political correctness is sort of dying out. Yeah, political correctness is, yeah, it's a little passé, no doubt about it. Well, the truth of the matter is I'm just being silly, and frankly, I'm just blabbing, really. I'm just yakking. Okay, so we do have a little problem here. For some reason, this, the wrap here doesn't want to fill. Okay, I see the problem. All right. So let's grab our outline color, and we got to just fix that right there. Fill, boom. Okay, so now let's go to the next frame. We got the same problem again. So that's the thing. It doesn't matter what you do. If you move quickly, in other words, to put it this way, if you actually are going to have good fun animating, you're going to pay a price for it. Because by having good fun, you're going to be moving fairly quickly. And when you move quickly, you're going to miss stuff. And what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter how hard you try not to. You're going to have little things that you have to go back and clean up and fix. It's... Believe me, I've tried to avoid that, and it's just like, no, you just be prepared. When it comes time to do the color and the ink, yeah, there's going to be issues. Issues, I say. Issues. Okay, what are we doing here? I guess we can just, since he moves so far, you can pretty much just fake that one. Now, I'm going to say, let's look back up here at this clip. Yeah, actually, we never did the... Oh, brother. I am a goof. Okay, so let's go to here. And... So... Should I tell my YouTube audience what I discovered this week? Okay, YouTube audience, this last week, I found out who I actually am. Now you might be wondering what the heck that means. Well, the deal is, okay, so we've got the wraps here, What about in front? Around the arms, yeah, a little bit. Okay, so I was adopted when I was a baby. And so there's a whole epic story surrounding my birth that until recently has remained a mystery. And I was born in a time that's known in adoption circles as the black hole. And what the black hole is, it's a period of time, I can't remember what the range is. It's somewhere in the range of 1940 to 1980, but somewhere in that range. If you were born and got adopted, you're kind of sunk if you're curious about your your ethnic heritage, your genetics, your medical history, your family, you're out of luck, because the thing was that adoptions were closed. I'm sure there were probably exceptions, but for the most part, this is just how it was done. So, anyway, so like a few weeks ago, I'm like, where's my. Oh, there's my watch. Of course, I'm not wearing a watch. Maybe I should draw one here on my wrist. If I was looking at my watch, I'd say, well, time's a wasting. If I'm gonna, find out about my heritage or my roots or whatever you want to call it, it might be time to get on the stick. And so I decided to get on the stick. And what I did was I filed this deal with the court up in Michigan where I was adopted, and to see if there was like some records, like maybe the birth parents authorized the release of information. Because if there's agreement about that and all parties involved are down with it, then that can happen. Well, I wasn't so lucky at first, because it turned out, nope, nobody had filed anything. However, if nobody files anything, what you do is you go to what's called a confidential intermediary. And this is a person who has access to all the secret records, and they can go confidentially to those people that are responsible for bringing you into the world, and ask them confidentially, hey, are you interested in connecting with this guy that maybe you have a connection with? So anyway, in this confidential intermediary, I have to say, if there's anybody listening to this that was adopted or has that type of curiosity or whatever, I definitely would recommend, put it this way, the experience of working with the confidential intermediary was quite positive. She told me out of the gate that 95% of the time the families are very open and into it. They're curious as well, blah blah blah. So, and that was basically what happened in my case, is that it was a fairly positive experience so far, where those people were in fact open to learning about me and getting to know me and how I'm getting along in life or whatever, I suppose. So that's cool. It was kind of fun. Has been fun so far, let's put it that way. Now the one of the sources of curiosity for me, obviously, I think you could guess, would have to do with siblings, because well, it's not obvious, but in many cases, if you have, like, back in the 1960s and two teenagers become pregnant, stuff happens, the odds are that I'm the oldest kid. Well, the family I grew up in, I was the youngest kid. So it always kind of occurred to me that, man, I got some like kid brothers and sisters out there floating around, So indeed, I found out I definitely have a number of kid brothers and sisters, and they all seem like really, really solid people I would certainly enjoy getting to know and all that sort of thing. And so anyway, that's kind of one of the things that actually frankly kept me from working on this animation this week. Just the whole process of communicating with these new people and getting to know them a little bit and blah blah blah. It's a fairly emotional experience in many ways, and obviously it's somewhat time consuming as well. So, and frankly, there's no deadline on this anime, so I'm like, sorry YouTube audience, we're gonna set this aside for a few days and focus on some other things. And that wasn't really actually, there were some other things this week. I actually got a very nice visit from my adoptive family this week. So my mom and my sister and my brother all came and visited. So Yeah, so I'm actually just swimming in siblings at this point, but um, haven't had the privilege of talking to many of them or communicating with them, because there's a bit of a process we need to go through so that everyone involved can exercise the proper discretion and respect, so that everybody has the opportunity to weigh in on what they do or don't want, in terms of all those things are important. So you got to be kind of patient. Well, frankly, the process began like, I mean, 60 days, let's say. That's pretty fast, but that's still, a bit of time to wait. So, I mean, the process actually started a while ago. I'm thinking it was either June or July. And so, anyway, as I'm blabbing on and on, I've gotten my lines drawn. Let's hit the loop key and kind of magically see what happens. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm not seeing an egregious amount of chatter. Now, we definitely need the lines in his mask to sort of echo what we have here. Yeah, and his mask, what the heck I was thinking when I made the mask blue is a little beyond me, but boom, that's fixed. Okay, so now what we need is, we really need I'm going to snag that one right there. I think that's actually the color I want. I'm going to go, okay, I need to turn the snapping off. Off with you snapping. Had a piece of fuzz on my, Okay, so I'm seeing a little bit of a problem here. Yes, there's definitely a problem. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to crank the value of this highlight or this outline color just a little bit to better match what we had previously. And also, let's go to his hair, take a little peek at that. Yeah, I'm kind of seeing an issue there as well. Frankly, these colors should probably be... Okay, why is that taking forever to update? I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so really what we want to do is crank up the tone of the outline a little bit, like that. So now everything kind of matches better. At this point, the only thing that's really missing for Ninja 1, I would say, is his shadows. So cool. Let's rock and roll on some shadows. Now, the way I'm going to do it, let me just think about this a little bit. If I go back to what I got here in Vegas, one thing about the siblings thing that's kind of funny too is that if they grew up in a different part of the country, they may not talk the same way I do. I have a definite Michigan accent. Yeah. So anyway, this was pretty successful. I mean, initially Akari's eyes didn't look like that. The one thing that isn't in this preview, though, is that her hair all got updated, and I never did render that. So her hair looks actually... Her hair now looks nothing like you see here. Okay, so... Okay. What do we need to do then? Shadows, shadows, shadows. I'm going to jump over here, and let's just say all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go right here, and now you can't see this, but I'm just putting a dot. Oh, I put a dot. Okay, I put a dot here on the screen. Actually, I just touched it so that I can now, let's see here. Gosh, I need to grab a big old brush. Yep. And I'm going to make it black. I'm going to go ahead and make it pure black. Okay. You know, the problem with doing it this way instead of with like a Toons raster level is that it's hard to see where the shadow is. So here's how I can kind of help with that. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab his body and just turn the opacity down to like 30%. Okay, so now at least I can see what I'm doing. I think I accidentally just drew on the wrong level. room. So again, you can't see this, but I need to check. Yep, see, I did. That's one of the risks you run when you're working with the xsheet. If you're moving fast and you accidentally, you grab one layer or level, if you don't make sure to click back to the level that you want to draw on, you're going to start drawing and accidentally put everything on the wrong level. So now what I got to do is bring that transparency down, but then jump back to the correct level. Whew! Now we're back in business. Okay, so of course OpenTunes always switches your brushes back like a goofy program, which is definitely a little annoying. But okay, so now I should say that. Let me see here. Okay, we're gonna have two layers of shadow. Here's why. In the schematic, if I'm really sloppy with this, if I just kind of go like this, and I'm not very careful, it's perfectly fine because I can layer this shadow over top of him in multiply mode, but I can use his body as a mask so that the shadow is only visible where his body is. But then if I put the shadow down here on the floor, then obviously the body's not there, so you're not going to see it. So I need to make the cast shadow and the shadow wing two different things. Okay? So now to get this all rocking and rolling, what I'm going to do is go ahead and extend that out so that it can create keyframes automatically as I go. And with that, I should be able to... Okay, and I think I'm going to turn on the onion skinning. Yeah, I'm going to turn on the onion skins just so I can see what I had before. And then what I'm going to do is... that should actually look pretty good. Okay. Alright. Okay. Same thing here. Okay. So what I'm trying to do here is just catch the stuff that I know is going to change. So in other words, everything in here is all just going to be filled in, copying over what we had before. There's a parallel universe where there's actually more efficient ways to do what I'm doing right now, but like maybe if the whole thing was some kind of vector shapes and you just squished the shadow shape around, whatever. But my point is that it doesn't really take that long to just scribble in and repaint another frame, so what the heck. Okay, so here, gosh, I hate to do another frame for that, but he did move a little bit, so let's just deal with it. What we got? 248. Okay. We had I've talked in other videos about film that I just released. And by the way, I can officially announce you can get it now if you look on Amazon, for example. There's other places, but Amazon would be the likely location. So if you want to see Healed by Grace 2, which is the sequel to Healed by Grace 1, which came out in 2013, I think, 2012, something like that. So the sequel is out. But this week there was a limited engagement theatrical showing. And so that was another thing that's sort of taken up a little time, dealing with that and going to the theater and having visitors from out of town. Yeah, it's just been a busy couple weeks, frankly. But the theater owner is actually swinging by here in a little bit and dropping off the posters and well, suppose a check as well, I suppose, for whatever my share of the box office was. So anyway, busy, busy, busy. It's busy, busy, busy. What should we talk about? Should we talk about feature film financing? Huh? Huh? Well, the reason I'm thinking about feature film financing is I think people assume especially if you have a movie that's gotten some, reasonably good penetration, into the public consciousness. It'd be the same as if you were a musician and you had an album that had done pretty well. People always assume that people who create, music or films or whatever, are just rolling in the bucks, and you can be, and I'm not complaining a bit. I do okay in life, okay, but my point is that a lot of people don't really think through the reality of the numbers on that kind of stuff, especially when you consider with Hollywood films, they've got to put at least as much money into, in most cases, not all cases. There are movies with $100 million budgets where this isn't quite true, but generally speaking, they're going to put as much money into promoting it as they're going to put into making it. So if it costs $30 million to make, it's not at all ridiculous to think they're going to spend $30 million trying to build public awareness of that film to the point where you're going to go to the theater. So it's a very spendy process, and whoever incurs that cost obviously is going to want to recoup it too. So it's just interesting to me that once you actually look at the cost of making a film, and then look at all the stakeholders in the chain. So you've got you might have a studio if there's somebody backing the picture. In my case, there really wasn't. I've had some meager support from like some cable channel type entities and distributors in the past, but this particular film really was kind of self-funded. But the point is that once you create the movie, and then you introduce a distributor into the chain, a lot of times, especially with international sales, now you've got another distributor in the chain. Okay, so I have a distributor in the United States. He makes a deal with the distributor in, say, Germany, and then but he's not really selling it piecemeal to like TV stations or streaming services in Germany, although that could happen. Generally, what he's going to do is he's just going to broker a deal with a German distributor. So now the German distributor wants to get their cut, and then the German distributor is going to turn around and get the film to whatever pertinent streaming services or platforms are relevant for Germany. So what that means is, so just think about this for a minute. That means if your film is going to, let's say it costs $5.99 to stream the movie. I'm totally spitballing here and kind of making up the numbers, but let's say it costs $5.99. Somebody's going to watch your movie, okay? And now you got your movie, you got your $5.99. Now you got the streaming service. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that it's not Netflix, so it's what they call transactional. So transactional means that they get paid and essentially you get paid if somebody watches the show. Okay, so that's an important distinction because it's completely different from a deal you might strike with a distributor where they're paying you a bulk fee just to license the rights to the show, and So let's take a hypothetical number. Let's say your movie's pretty good, and there's a distributor in Germany who says, "Yeah, we like the movie, but we want to be able to really make a killing with this picture. So what we're going to do is we're going to pay you maybe $10,000, let's just say, because this is a relatively low budget movie. So they're going to say $10,000, and now we have the rights, and we can exploit that film as much as we want in Germany. So essentially, we're buying the territory. Okay, that's not really that unusual. That would be a I shouldn't say it's not unusual. It just depends. But let's say it's not that kind of a deal. Let's say it's not a bulk license fee situation. Let's say it's all just transactional. Okay, so that means when somebody pays $6 to watch that movie, that my point is that $6 is being split. At least you've got the platform, you got the German distributor, you got the American distributor. In some cases, you might have another, person in the chain, and then if you add to that a studio who wants to recoup their marketing costs or whatever, you just split that $6 a lot, and it's not split 6 ways. Okay, it's more like 50% of 50% of, you know what I'm saying? It really trickles down to a fairly small number pretty fast, which means that the only way you're really going to get a lot of revenue from that picture is if you have a lot of people watching it. And okay, so I better, let's see here. I'm going to change let's call this, okay, OpenTunes is acting a little stupid right now. I'm double clicking this and it's not letting me rename. So I think what I'll do is jump back here. I'm just going to look at it, and it says it's called table. So I want to go. Oh, I'm sorry. I was clicking the wrong thing. My bad. It's column 10. Okay, so let's go to column 10. And apparently at this step, they don't want to let me change the name either. It's kind of weird. So I'm going to go here and go N1 shadow. Okay. Finally got that to work. Okay, N1 shadows right there. So what we need to do, I just realized something that's going to make this kind of clunky. And probably this is going to mark a good place to stop. Let me go ahead and see this through, and I'll show you why this is problematic. The basic issue is that his head and his hands and his body are not all on the same level. So I've got to have a way to combine them here in the schematic so that I can apply the shadow, so the shadow affects all of those. Okay, so column 4 is the column in question that represents his body. So just to make this really quick and simple, let's just take these two levels, and we're gonna add an effect, and it's layer blending INO, and I think what we want is probably multiply. So let's just do that. We'll add multiply INO. We'll call this, actually that's the foreground, and this is the background, and we want this to be a clipping mask. That's important. If it's not a clipping mask, this isn't going to work. Okay, so now we look at our preview, and you can see that the shadow is clipped. That's why it's called a clipping mask. The shadow is clipped to the character, but you can also see that it's falling apart here because his hands and his face are not actually part of the same level. I think I can fix that with a simple overlay approach. Let's test it with the head right now and just see if this works. So we're going to take columns 4, and what we're going to do is we're going to insert an effect, which is going to be layer blending. Let's just do over. Over is like as simple as it gets. Okay. And now let's take that and feed that into the multiply. Okay, that worked. Okay. So now, and we're still going to have to add the hands in there. And actually, the good news is, one cool thing with OpenTunes is that the over effect does allow you to stack up as many layers as you want. So what we need is column 5, and I'm going to change its name right now to hands. So this is actually a good exercise today because it's very indicative of, you know, what's it really like to create animation. Well, this is it. It's pretty much just, it's quite a bit of grunt work actually. Okay, so let's take that. And now what we have is, we've got this multiplied over our character perfectly well. But now the opacity of it is not quite what we wanted. We don't want it to be black. We want it to be something more like that. Now that looks very similar to what we had in the earlier versions of the scene. So with that, the only other thing I would think is, do we want to add a slight blur on... Ooh, that's way too much blur. So let's just go 2 millimeters. Let's see if that does. Okay, and now I'm going to say turn it off. Nope, I don't think we want the blur. Because if you add the blur, it's again one of those situations where it doesn't look like anime anymore. It looks too soft. It looks too sweet and good and creamy. No, no, no. We want to have some harshness. So, because this is anime. So one of the cool things is, apparently one of my biological sisters is really into anime. Who knew? Isn't that weird? So it'll be interesting to find out, I hope I get to find out, what anime she's into. I mean, personally, you know, I'm not really a Death Note kind of guy. I'm more of a Food Wars, Bakuman, Devil is a Part-Timer, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. To an extent, My Hero Academia. Those are, you know, they tend to be a little more slice of life, but not completely, because obviously My Hero Academia is not slice of life. It's like slice of life with some either supernatural or magical or silly twist, right? I mean, Bakuman is slice of life, and I would say that Food Wars is slice of life. Food Wars was a surprisingly entertaining anime. Actually, I was kind of really surprised how much we enjoyed that. So anyway, here we go. Okay, so the question might arise, well, what if you want to be able to see in the regular preview what your shadows and stuff are going to look like? Here's how you can do that, by the way. First thing I'm going to do is crank this, make sure this is back up to full opacity. Same thing here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the shadow layer and turn its opacity down to like 15%, I think. Okay, let's see if that worked. Okay, well, the interesting thing is it didn't work. If I turn it off, so I just, as you can see, I just modified the opacity of it, and it didn't do a thing. So I'm going to say this is probably an example of OpenTunes being kind of stupid, and if I restart it, it's probably going to fix that problem. But let's turn our onion skins off. Okay, so now, okay, there's your issue. I did not know that. If you have onion skins on, then any preview opacity is canceled out. Okay, that's how it works. Whatever. So anyway, that gives us a pretty good approximation of what it's going to look like, and then if we turn on the render, you can see what it's really going to look like. So, okay, so we hop up out of here, and then maybe the question would arise, well, what happens next? Once he gets up here, it's going to cut to outside where we see Ninja 2 sort of kicking around, which is kind of fun. And I thought that was... And I'm actually just dragging on the X sheet over here, and then it cuts to inside where the guy sort of struggles to Ninja 2 right here struggles to get in. I'm sort of talking this through to myself as I go, and of course Akari's aware of them, and then Ninja 2 knocks the table, which causes the vase to start. The vase is going to tip over, which causes Ninja 1 to react. Yeah, we gotta go get that. And then the next thing is the next scene is where he discovers that Akari's standing behind him with a knife in his back. Not stabbing him, but basically threatening to stab. Okay, so what do we have here? We're gonna have to put the other issue that we have in play right now is that based on the hold that we have right around here, this shot is actually several frames longer than it was before. So I'm gonna go ahead and I don't know how many. I may regret this, but I think what I can do is now I don't want to reframe it. Let's try it this way. Let's do resequence. Okay, let's see what happens here. Okay, so I can't really complain about this. What OpenTunes did was, let's go back down into the yeah, sorry, you guys can't even see what I'm doing. In the X sheet, I just grabbed the column and I right mouse clicked in the header and then hit resequence. Well, what that does is it resequences from frame 1 and actually initiates the whole thing at frame 1. Well, that's a little problematic because now if we go down into that sub X sheet, what we're going to find is that if we want to see what's going on, we need to take all of this and drag it up to frame 1. So I'm going to say this is kind of a dangerous move, but I'm going to try it this way. I'm going to grab here, down to here, and gosh, these keyframes, the problem is that these animation keys are not going to go with it. So that's really the thing that's problematic. But at least I know they all start on frame 1, so this should be okay. I'm going to go cut, go up to frame 1, and paste. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing here. And like I said, hopefully this will work. I'm actually going to go grab this and grab that. Okay, same thing here. And this is on the ponytail frame is where that starts. So I'm going to go Control X. And please let this work. Control V. Ah, it did. It worked. Okay. So that's good news. So now if we go over here, we should see from frame 1 everything back to normal, and it appears to be. So now that's great. So we can hop up out of the sub X sheet, and looky, there is our scene again. And now as we scroll through it, you can see that everything south of there actually, let me jump back here. So what's happening here is you can see that the scene does go several frames longer, but then you got all these frames that are empty. Okay, so what needs to happen is we got to take, actually it's great that we have this little gap here. That actually works to our advantage. So let's drag this down, and let's drag this down. Maybe we're lucky and it lined it up. It lined it up perfectly. Oh my gosh. Learn the language, Dave. Okay, so alright, so now he starts to stand up. Ninja 2's squiggling around, and he struggles to get in the room, and now we're back in business. So with that, gosh, I've been going for almost an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and kill it for today. I got a few other things to do, and the my theater guy could be showing up any minute. So so what was my point? What was my point about the economics of filmmaking? My point was that unless you're a real auteur and super talented, and people are coming out of the woodwork to throw money at you, um, be aware that uh, you 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 want to do it because you enjoy doing it, not because you're going to make a lot of money. You might make a lot of money. You could do really well, but that's not the reason to do it. It's a real different world today. It's real democratic. The equipment to make good quality, to do quality filmmaking, the equipment is cheap today, really cheap. There is no technological, financial barrier creatively. So that means there's a lot more people doing it, and there's a lot more really mediocre stuff out there. So, which has made it harder for distributors because they're constantly sifting through. All my distributor friends, they're always just pouring through content that sucks mostly, looking for the golden goose. They're looking for the one property that that they think is really going to take off. So what I've done, for those who care, is I basically said, well, I'm gonna make the film so economically that even if it does just okay, it's still going to be profitable. So that's that's been my strategy. It's like Roger Corman. Look up, if you don't know who Roger Corman is, look him up, because he's the quintessential Hollywood cheapskate filmmaker who's made movies for decades. I mean, he's like pushing 90 years old. Gave a lot of directors their start. Two guys like Ron Howard and Jonathan is it Deming? I couldn't. I mean, there's quite a few directors who went on to do really great work that originally got their opportunity with Roger Corman. So definitely fun to read his biography. So I would say that is it for today. I think that maybe when I was scrolling through here, I didn't actually have the video. I'm looking at the video and not realizing that you guys are forced to look at the X sheet. So anyway, but that's where I'm going to stop today, and I'm sure we will continue either tomorrow or very soon.